Legends, welcome back to another special Ruck Infringement Podcast interview. This week, I have the honor of interviewing the one and only Kiwi legend, Adam Blair. Adam, how are you, mate?
Really good. Thanks, brother. How are you, Joe?
Mate, I am great. Pleasure to have you on, of course. Now, for those that may not know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself by saying who you are and maybe how your footy career started when you were young?
Oh, gee, Joe, we're going a bit of a journey here, man. Obviously, I'm Adam Blair, and I grew up in a small place in New Zealand, up in the North Island called Whangarei. I moved from Whangarei to an even smaller place in the country town, right up further north, called Hokianga, and in there, bro, we lived off our farm. We had a family farm, so we lived there, and I grew up most of my childhood up there. Some of the best childhood memories I've ever had, and I say this story to a lot of people. I rode horses to school. I drove cars at 11.
Wow.
Um, the closest house to us was 5 k's away, and the closest dairy to us was a 30-minute drive. So, in a real small little country town, but the best childhood memories I've ever had as a kid. On that journey, bro, played a bit of rugby growing up. A lot of where I'm from up north is rugby, and New Zealand is predominantly
Mm,
rugby.
yeah.
Obviously, things are changing now, but growing up as a small kid, I always wanted to be an All Black, always wanted to sing the anthem, always wanted to stand in front of hundreds of thousands of people and do the haka. That was a goal, that was a dream, and I think I had that from the ages of 10. Fortunately enough, I got to play for New Zealand, but just not in the game that I grew up playing. And then just moved back down into Whangarei to get a bit of an opportunity to come and play league. I had a friend, family friend that was a coach, said come along for a game. And back then we could play rugby on Saturdays, league on Sundays. It's
Yeah,
obviously all
good.
changed in New Zealand. So I went along just as a favor for my mate, just to play some games. I think I played 3 games. Come over to New Zealand. I went to Australia as a, like they called us, a foundation team. They picked a team of 21 to travel Australia. I'm very fortunate I was picked in that team and traveled over. I think we played Penrith and Parramatta. And then from there, I come back home not thinking too much of it because it was just an opportunity to go and play some league. And I get I guess a phone call, and good old mate Pete O'Sullivan, who's still rolling around these days,
Yeah.
found me and convinced my mum and my granddad and my grandma to sign up and get me over to Australia, to Melbourne. So that's kind of how that early part of my growing up started. Always wanted to play rugby, got an opportunity to play league and just grabbed it.
Love that, mate. Now, obviously, you played rugby, you played rugby league. Was there any ever another sport on your radar, or it was just purely rugby and rugby league?
Oh, it was purely rugby, to be honest. There was no
Yeah.
rugby league growing up. Rugby league was more just a bit of a fun sport on the other side. And again, like everything now with rugby and league, most skills are transferable anyway.
Mm,
So never wanted to play league at all. I just played it for fun, just because my mates are
yeah.
doing it and I got asked to play, and I wanted to play rugby all the way up to hopefully make it becoming an All Black. So not really. I guess you play a lot of sports when you're a kid. I played touch. I played football. I played
Mm,
basketball. But the dream was always to be an All Black.
yeah, love it. Now, you obviously talked about getting that call from Peter O'Sullivan, and you obviously get signed for Melbourne. Now, can you take us through your debut? Were you nervous, and what do you remember about that day?
Oh, it was a struggle to get to my debut, to be honest. Like most journeys to becoming an NRL player, you ride the highs and lows of being a young teenager, having
Yeah.
a bit of and making that commitment to yourself. If you actually really want to take this on, as be serious with your rugby league. And I think it was about the end of 2005 preseason, about the start of preseason, that I really thought that if I wanted to give this game of league a crack and make NRL, I had to really knuckle down and put the work in. And as a young teenager, a long time ago, maybe mostly took a lot of shortcuts to get to where I wanted to get to, but came a time where those shortcuts was the undoing of myself, but also gave me the, I guess, the the drive to try and kick on and try and make this
Mm.
a career. I get to end of 2005 preseason, which is start of 2006, and I've been told by Craig Bellamy and the staff there that I could be starting in round one for
Wow.
the Melbourne Storm in 2006 because Brett White may have been injured. Obviously, I come down to Melbourne because there was a position up for grabs, and they said it was front row, and they asked me if I could play front row. I've never played front row in my life. I was playing up in Wave back row, and I said, "Of course I can play front row." It was the opportunity more than anything, than the position. So they said, "Yeah, you come down. You might be a chance of debuting round one in 2006." So the rounds get through. I'm getting closer and closer. I'm playing a little bit of Queensland Cup for Norths, and then round six comes around, and I get my debut. Most probably one of the, I guess, greatest moments for myself to be able to come from a small place
Yeah.
and out of a country town where there is not many opportunities. So one of the greatest memories was to be able to, I guess, bring my mum over to Australia to be there for that journey on that day, and my uncle who was part of that as well, and to play on Leichhardt Oval, I thought was looking back on it, you know what I mean? I didn't know too much about Leichhardt. I was just a kid. I was 21. I was excited to be there. I was ready to turn this into a career. Um, and I got to debut in Leichhardt. I think I come on in the second half or mid first half, and I think we're down. We end up losing, but myself and I think Jeremy Smith come off the bench, and we kind of make a little bit of an impact off the bench, and nearly creeped the game back in, but wasn't to be. Nerves. Yeah, I was more nervous because I didn't want to let anyone down. I think
Yeah, of course.
that's why everyone gets nervous is because you know you're good enough when you get there. It's just you don't want to let your teammates down. And
Yeah.
being a young kid coming through, especially through the Melbourne Storm system, I had so many legends around me and immortals, Hall of Famers. And it's just crazy that you go out there and you look back on that time and you think, geez, I was so lucky to be around those people. And um, the pressure of, I guess, not letting them down was mostly where the nerves come from more than anything,
Mm.
Joe.
Yeah, yeah, mate. Look, it's always a nervous feeling making that debut, especially in the big leagues like that. Mate, let's have a bit of fun now. Did you have a nickname when you played footy? I know a lot of players have some funny nicknames. Did you have one, or was it just Blairy? Or
I think I think everyone, and it's funny how everyone just uses everyone's surname.
yeah,
Uh, and it becomes a nickname. I know some really funny nicknames, and people just give them to them, and they just hope the person that they give them to hopes it doesn't stick, but they just end up sticking. So really, it was Blair's or Blairy most of the
yeah,
time,
okay,
and it just stayed with it. It's just easy because that's my
yeah.
surname. You know what I mean? A Y on or chuck a S on the end, and it's Blair's or Blairy. So no, not really too. Not that I can think of, especially down in Melbourne. Not many that I could think of, but I think Blairy was the one that was obviously used a lot and still is.
Yeah, yeah, nice, mate. Now, were you superstitious, or did you have any teammates that had any strange or funny rituals?
I was never superstitious. I think, when I look back on my journey, I would say more routine like than
Yeah,
superstitious.
yeah.
But I think that was instilled from us through the Melbourne Storm system. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And I guess it's how everything runs these days anyway. It's like what time you got to be at training. So it's kind of routine more than anything. So if I was superstitious, it was maybe because if I had a certain meal every time on game day, and it was, say, I don't know, chicken and avocado toast and sandwiches with barbecue sauce and cheese. If I was in a hotel and they didn't have that, then I'm guessing that's a little bit superstitious, but
mm,
that was my routine then more than anything, is like I needed to have that, and that was what it was. I guess the thing when you get older, and the thing that must be saved a lot of those superstitions or even routine was having kids.
yeah.
Having throw your routine out of whack. There is no such thing as routine when you have kids, but I'm
Oh,
very
yeah.
very grateful that I had my eldest boy when I was 24, and it kind of, I guess, put life into perspective a lot earlier than you would normally do in rugby league. But I guess most boys are doing it now. But also keeps you grounded, but it also makes you have to think out of the box for routine and when you're going to get your timing, your
Mm.
sleeps in, or what you're going to eat. So I wouldn't say I was more superstitious than anything. I was more just I needed my routine.
Yeah, yeah, of course. As a dad myself, I definitely agree with that, mate. Now, did you have any footy idols when you were growing up?
I obviously said earlier, rugby union. I loved Zinzan Brook, who
Oh
was
yeah,
a position to myself when I was growing up as a kid, a number eight, and loved watching rugby union. And he was my rugby union idol. Uh, I only started watching most probably rugby league in 2002 when the Warriors went on and played in grand final, and that was only because I supported a couple of those Kiwi players, and
yeah.
I watched the Kiwis more than the Warriors, if I'm being really honest. And I watched obviously Stephen Kearney and Ruben Wiki and
Mm.
Stacey Jones, Ali Lau, Ali Lautiti, and all those big name players. And I think the one that stood out to me the most was Stephen Kearney because later when I started playing rugby league, I was moved into the back row and I thought I had some similarities, maybe. Uh, Tall, rangy, had an offload, had good feet. And I kind of thought that was who that I looked up to. Very fortunate that when I went to Melbourne, Stephen Kearney was there, and I had followed Stephen Kearney throughout my journey, through Melbourne, to the Broncos, and then to the Warriors, and then the Kiwi space. So someone that I did really look up to and have still got a really good relationship is Stephen Kearney.
Mate, we'll have to send him this once the interview drops. He'll love to hear that. Mate, let's talk about your time at Melbourne, of course. Now, that infamous fight uh,
Yep.
on the sidelines, Glenn Stewart, you're walking off. I remember watching this and absolute scenes there. Can you take us through what actually happened?
Yeah, everyone loves this one, Joey. They always ask what did he say,
Yeah.
uh, and everyone wants to know how it all happened. And I guess like you and everyone else, they're intrigued about what was said on that day. If I take us back, obviously, to the rivalry between
Yeah.
Melbourne and the Seagulls, a couple of grand finals played previously. And again, some of those boys, I guess like the Stewart brothers and Watmo, um, they were a big part of the Origin rivalry as well. And
Mm,
when boys would play against New South Wales and Queensland, and also they would come together around that Australian time when it's international stuff. So I kind of think that the rivalry was built up more around those guys more than myself. And through those Origin periods for New South Wales and Queensland, and also grand finals, and then obviously this game was just one of those games that was rivalry from the start. It was niggle. When I look back on that week, we used to have the rugby league week book, and you used
yeah.
to get all they used to send them all out to the clubs. And when we were living in Melbourne, that's most of the only thing you read about rugby league because there was nothing on TV down there, and didn't have too much social media, all these apps now that we do have with all the Fox stuff that's going on. So the closest thing to rugby league for the Melbourne players and for us was the rugby league week book. And funny behold, the two people on the front of the page of the rugby league, the big league week was myself and Glenn Stewart. I didn't know for some reason that week that I didn't even read the book or see the book, but that's where it was all stirring up and building, I guess, that rivalry through the magazine and all those kind of things. So we go to the game, and I think I take the first carry or one of the carries in a set, and you could feel the elbows in the back of the neck and the hands all
Yeah.
around the face and the grubbiness, which you could get away with back then. And you know, me being me, I gave a bit out, so I had to take a bit as well. So I was like, okay, if that's how it's going to be, this is what kind of game it's going to be. Well, we both can play this game. So it just got a little bit like that early in the game. And then for some old reason, old Hinchcliffe, which is you see it even today. People just he pulls out of a tackle and his elbow hits Darcy in the face, and even just a push and shove. But for some reason, I come flying in. I don't know why. I come flying out seventh man into a bloody push and shove and throw an uppercut, just because. You could, you know what I mean? And
Yeah, that's
look,
it.
so you run in, and I knew I wasn't going to get away with it. And you watch the footage, and it's Ryan Hinchcliffe and Darcy Lussick, and they review the cameras again, and you can hear the commentators as they watch it back, and they're saying, "Oh well, Blair's going to have to start walking too." So we go through the push and shove, and I throw an uppercut. Don't even know if I got Darcy, to be honest. I just threw it up in amongst 7 or 8 other people, and when I came through the Melbourne system, we were taught a lot to like jog to places or move quick to places to get to the next drill or get to our water break and everything
Yeah,
when we're down time, you know what I mean? So it's like, all right, you've got a 2 minute break. If you don't get your water in 2 minutes, you're done. Like get back here, get ready to start the drill. And I guess that's what makes them what they are, is that we had a real routine like training sessions where it's like you got a certain time. So my whole thought, and people may have thought I run and chase them off the park, but my whole mentality was, wow, get off the field as quick as I can to start my 10
yeah,
minutes. That was my thinking. On the way there, obviously they sent us both off together. My whole thought wasn't to start an all-in brawl. It was more just, like I said, just to get off and get my 10 minutes started. As I go start running off towards him, he obviously starts mouthing off, and I think it was just more so colorful words than anything,
yeah,
Joey. Thing to do. It might have been like, yeah, for let's go here, you know what I mean? And I'm just me being me, and in the heat of the moment, he goes and grabs me, looks around, and it's all on. And you're not going to stand there and cop it. I think, back then you're allowed to throw punches, and I think if no one runs in, the fight pretty much stops itself. But because of everyone running in, it kind of escalates the whole thing, and it ends up being what it is, and everyone comes running in. And I think this is what everyone enjoyed, is that it went from two guys having a little push and shove and throwing a few punches that didn't even connect, to an all-in brawl that, the sideline got in. There was, the whole other team was jumping in. There was a few punches getting thrown on the ground. And it was a moment, to be honest, Joey, that when I look back, if I had my time again, I still would have ran off, but I would have just ran off on a sharper angle and got off to the
yeah,
sideline,
yeah,
rather than get towards him. Because that year it was my last year at the Melbourne Storm, and it wasn't much the way I wanted to go out. We obviously wanted to get to a final that year. We got beaten by the Warriors, and we needed a couple of other games to go our way. He gets to play in a grand final, and he gets to win a grand final, Glenn Stewart. I unfortunately miss out, and that's the way I finished my time at the Melbourne Storm. So, looking back on it, it's been done. It still gets played these days. It still tries to
yeah,
build around the Melbourne and Seagulls games. But at the end, bro, it wasn't. I can't even remember exactly what he said, but there would have been
mm.
just some colorful words. And when you're playing rugby league, you just start yelling out whatever you want. You call someone an effing idiot or something like this, and then he goes and grabs you, and I go and grab him, and it is what it is. That's what we do. You start throwing punches. So, unfortunately, that was my time at the Melbourne Storm, and some memories that'll be there for a long, long time in the game of rugby league.
Yeah, mate, and yeah, the rugby league community will not let you forget that one. Now, you mentioned it a little bit there, but you talk about the Melbourne Storm. We often hear what a fantastic culture it is at the club. Just take us through that culture, because obviously, being behind closed doors, you would see it a lot more. But us looking in, we just think it's incredible.
Yeah, well, it's a culture that's been built over 2 decades, I think, with Craig Bellamy. 2003 he rocks up,
Yeah,
uh, and bloody I rock up at the same time, unfortunately. Uh, Unfortunately, but fortunately enough, you know what I mean. And I think the moment he gets in there, I think, how old was I? 15, maybe 16 when I turn up there, and still a kid. And I guess he sets the standard right from the get-go. when you look from the outside, and then even me now, and the people that they've been able to turn over and turn them into the people that they are, the players that they are,
Yeah.
you I think what attracts players to that is the history and the evidence of what's gone before them.
Mm,
And that's why yourself and me and others, that's what we see. We see, and as a player, why wouldn't you want to go to a place where you know that there's a history of people that have come out of their players that have gone to play for their country, their state, or
yeah.
even made better people, better players. So when you go to a club like that, the Melbourne Storm, you automatically feel that you're going to a place where you're going to get better. So you embrace the challenge. You don't go in there thinking that you're not going to get better. You know, if you put the work in, that you're going to come out a better player in this game for longevity as well. And you see everyone that's gone through there, and there's been some guys that you would say that weren't the best footballers, but he's turned them into great humans and premiership winning forwards or premiership winning players. And the culture is, you look at the club and the people that run the place, or even in the coaching staff, are former Storm players. There's no one else, and I don't think they'll ever allow or get anyone else outside of those walls to come in and coach that place, because you have to be a player that has been through there, or be a player that's at there to understand what it means to be a Melbourne Storm player. And I think the
Mm,
culture is rich of, I guess, hard work. And that's what I feel. It's a rich place of hard work. And with hard work and the work you put in breeds confidence in what you do on the field. No matter who you are as a player, if you're new to the place, you either fit in or you don't. And even today's day and age, players that go down there, they know that they're going to get better. So they buy into whatever's happened. They've seen the culture, the evidence is already there for them to see. So they want to be the best player that they can be. So I just think, you know, through hard work and culture, they've created a unstoppable force of a team over the last 2 decades that Craig Bellamy has had them. And every year they lose players, and they lose a group of players, and some really good players, actually all good players that have left there. But they've managed to bring these players through that represent the Storm in a way that they need them to. And they
yeah.
don't have to be best flashy players. They don't have to be the biggest, the strongest, the fittest. They just have to fit into a culture that helps them grow and be the best player they can be, and be a Melbourne Storm player.
And they've done it again this year, mate. I mean, to win the minor premiership from where they started in 2024 is just incredible. Mate, let's move into the rep field now. Now, you got the honor to play for your country. First off, was that the highest honor for you? And what was your favorite game for New Zealand?
Um, yeah, well, my first year into NRL, I played 16 games of NRL for the Melbourne Storm, and my first year in, I get selected to play for New Zealand, and um, it all come real quick for me, and unexpectedly as well. I think the whole dream is, when you become an NRL player, is to play one game, to
Yeah.
play two, to play three. And I think a long time ago, when I used to sit in like a theater room, and you have former players come and speak to you, and they always talk about that the game goes really quickly, and the average player plays 50 games.
Wow.
And in that moment, that was a long time. In that moment, I thought, I want to be the player that plays 50 plus games, and I
Yeah,
hope that
wow.
I like break that trend, because I didn't want to be the guy that played 50 games and then that was the average. So I wanted to be someone that played on and played longer. So when I got to in my 2006, my first year, and got selected after 16 games, I was um I was still not far away from leaving home. I think that was 3 years before I moved over in '03. So it was 3 years that I've been away from home. And I think the opportunity was more so that I get to go home, but I also got to hopefully represent my family in front of them on home soil. And that was much probably the biggest part of it. And like I said earlier, I always had the dream to represent New Zealand.
Yeah.
and do the haka, and I wasn't able to do it in the game that I actually loved growing up. I got to do it for in rugby league, which I came to grow into the game, and I loved it, and I still love it, and I'm so passionate about it now. So I got to go home, but the challenges were still there. I wasn't guaranteed that I was going to be playing. I was part of a squad, like always. You're not guaranteed a position. The person I was up against was Jason Kalis, who was a lot of those boys that I played with. Nate Kalis, obviously, World Cup captain, Benji Marshall, Ruben Wiki, Stacey Jones, Nigel Vagana, Brett Webb. There was some absolute legends of New Zealand in the team that I was playing, and I was just this young kid, 21-year-old, with alongside Simon Mannering, who played the same time as me, Manu Vatuve, who played a year before me in the '05 matches over in the UK where they beat them over there. So just to play for my country was most probably the highest honor for me.
Yeah.
And to play my first game in New Zealand after leaving home in front of in front of my family, my friends who pretty much, you know, put their hats on me to try and be that person for them to represent home and our friends. So I guess the relief of being able to be part of that journey, but also hold my little town on my shoulders and put them out there on the world stage to be noticed was much really the proudest moments.
Yeah, mate, that's incredible. Now, moving from rep field, let's talk about finals. Now, did you have a favorite finals memory, one that sticks out more than any other?
Yeah, this one will be a weird one, Joey. I think the 2015 grand final is the one that is most
Yeah, wow.
was my favorite one and sticks out to me more than most of them. I was very fortunate and spoilt, man, when I come through the Melbourne Storm, and
Mm,
we played every single year that I was down there, except for 2010, where we had the salary cap and obviously 11 before I finish up. But very young in my tenure as an NRL player and at that club, and we played, I think, '06, '07, '08, '09. Those are my early years, and very spoiled. And most probably took it for granted because it came around every year.
yeah.
And I think this is the hardest thing for a lot of players as well, is that when you get there, you think it's just going to come back again. And the hardest thing is that it doesn't actually work like that. So I really took those times I reckon I really took them for granted and just thought because I was at the Melbourne Storm that they'll just keep coming. Obviously, got a rude shock when I went to the West Tigers and was finishing in round 26 every year for the last
Yeah.
3 years that I was there. And really just wanted to get back to there again and find, I guess, my happy place. And like every footballer, your happy place is playing on the big stage in front of thousands of people cheering you on, and in grand finals or in World Cups or in Four Nations for us as Kiwis. Um, so I I I look back on my time and my memories, and although we lost, most probably the coolest week that I've had and enjoyed. As you get older in your career, you understand the meanings behind why you do what you do. You understand that it is just a game, and there is more to life than just
Mhm.
rugby league. And I think it was 31 and had played a lot of grand finals previously, then had maybe a 4 year spell on nothing, and then come to the Broncos in 2015, and real fortunate that we really snuck under the radar that year on the back of obviously having Wayne Bennett come back, and no one was expecting us to do what we did, and we really played a style of football that suited the players and that we had at the club. And you roll out on grand final day, and although we get to that last 20 seconds, and it's funny, my little son watches the games now and he loves rugby league. He's only 7, and we watch the grand final game. And although it's a tough watch, but there's some really great lessons inside of those things when you sit back and watch it as a former player rather than a player, because
Yeah.
so hard, so hard when you're a player to go back and watch over a loss, especially in a grand final, when sometimes you just think, man, we should have just lost in the semi-final, because you don't have to go through that heartache. The semi-finals is the game. The grand final looks after itself, and it's so hard to get into one. So sometimes when you get there and you lose it, you're just like, man, we should have just gone out the week before. But so many cool moments in that game. From obviously scoring the tries at the dying end for them to being under the pressure after a drop ball from Ben Hunt, and then trying to stop Thurston from kicking a drop kick. I think he would have tried maybe two times before the third time he actually was able to kick it. And the whole time in that grand final, there was so much hope in my head that we were gonna be able. We There was no way we were gonna lose this one. And even when he kicks that ball from the sideline, and I'm standing on the corner post, I didn't even go stand by the post because I was just, although they scored that try in the end to tie it up, I still thought we had a chance to win it. And I was just praying to the heavens above that he would hit a post and give us another opportunity to try and come back in the game and try and win it. Although it doesn't go that way, rugby league is a cruel game, but
Yeah.
there was so many cool moments in not only the week but in the game that I really enjoyed, and those are some really cool memories. Plus, the fans that turned up, two Queensland teams that had a great rivalry over the last few years that we were playing. We went to some cracker of some games, played up in Townsville, crazy heat, crazy humidity, taking games to Golden Points and playing up there. So there was a storyline to the whole grand final, and that kind of took you on that journey as a player as well. And so those are the cool memories that I have of that grand final. And yeah, although it was a disappointing loss, the memories of just being there and enjoying what I did was most probably the biggest part of those memories for me in that game.
I love that, mate. Now, let's go through a few favorites. Now, did you have a favorite coach that you played under, or did you like them all?
Um, well, I learned everything I do from Craig Bellamy, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people would say the same thing. He set the foundations for the player that I am. And on the back of that, you tinker with a few little things here and there, but the foundations, if you get your foundations right and someone helps you and guides you through that, then you become the player that you can be if you want to be. So with hard work, with you know being mentally tough, defending really well, which are three things that they live and die by over there, and turning up for your mate and playing with your mate and having their back. Those were the foundations learned from Craig Bellamy. I liked what he brought to us because I didn't know anything different and I needed to learn the game of rugby league. And I think everything I did and know to this day, the foundations were set from Craig Bellamy. The most fun I would have had in my footy career on the back of playing, spending a fair bit of time down in Melbourne. I think I played 121 games down there. The most fun I would have had was most probably my time at the Brisbane Broncos.
Yep.
Uh, Only because I went through some pretty tough times through the Tigers there, and still to this day they're still going through some tough times.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's pretty crazy that some of the hardest times I had was down my 3 years down in Sydney with the West Tigers, and some players are the same as well. So I guess I enjoyed Wayne because he allowed me to be the player he knew I could be. I was fortunate to have Wayne in the 2008 World Cup for the Kiwis alongside Steve Kearney, and I guess from there we built a relationship. And then when the opportunity come to leave the Tigers, and I get asked that Wayne really wants to have you up there, and I sit down with Wayne, and Wayne gave me the belief that, whatever I did, he wants me to find that love and that passion and recreate the player that he knows I can be, the player that he saw in 2008. And when, I guess, like any player, when a coach believes in you, you give him the respect. And Wayne's a hard person to get to know, and if you don't know him, and if he doesn't respect, if you don't give him respect, and he doesn't respect you, you won't get too much from Wayne. I'm really close with Wayne. even to this day, because I loved our journey that we've had up in the Brisbane Broncos. He stuck up for me a few times when, there was some borderline stuff that, you wouldn't even get away with it these days. But someone that stood by me through, the thick and thin, even in the good times and the bad times. So I really enjoyed having Wayne as a coach, a mentor more so than anything. Someone that believed in your ability and gave you the I guess the belief to believe in yourself.
Yeah, mate, that's awesome. Now, who was your funniest teammate? You obviously played across four different clubs. Did you have a funniest teammate?
Oh, I thought Cameron Smith was a funny guy when I was coming through there, and I think he still is a funny guy. Some of the funny things is the things that he used to like, the way that he used to talk to Craig Bellamy. I thought they had a really good relationship, both, both him and Craig. So the things that they used to say to each other were pretty funny. And even to this, even if you've read Cam's book, everything in their books is exactly what he used to do to Craig. And I read the book, and I only read till 2011 because those are my times that I felt it was relatable to myself,
Yeah.
and it really hit home about everything that he used to say and everything that he did to Craig. And I just had a little smile on my face. So I thought, as a kid growing up in a tough place like Melbourne, that Cam Smith was a pretty funny guy.
I love that. I love when he scored a few years back and he beat Bellamy's
Yeah,
record and
yeah,
Bellamy flipped him off.
yeah. Well, stuff like that, you know what I mean? But they had a really good relationship,
That's
and
great.
he's such a funny guy. But the funny thing was the banter that they had. So it wasn't like he wasn't being funny. He just had really good banter, and don't really see players having banter with Craig Bellamy. And Craig Bellamy, I think Cameron Munster might have a little joke around with him, but he can give it out, but he can also take it. But he's a good dude, Craig Bellamy, even away from rugby league. Although you see all the spitting and the swearing and the yelling and the boxes on TV, you take him out of that box and you take him out of the club. He's a really good dude.
Yeah, he sounds like a larrikin. Now, did you have a strangest teammate? Just a weird cat that you played with?
I think Josh Maguire is a bit of a weird dude. um, I don't know if you've ever met him, but I think he's a bit of a weird dude. Some of the just the bad habits that he has to trying to put snakes or stuff in
Oh,
people's
no.
beds, chucking mice on people in showers, and just silly little thing and just weird things that you would do. And although he was like a like a serial killer. He was real focused and knew what he wanted to do, but he also was just a weirdo with things that he did as well.
I love it. Did he have fake teeth?
Oh, yeah, most probably. I don't even
I,
know.
I
I
I
think as
remember
he got
hearing
old.
something about that somewhere, but I could be wrong. Um, Mate, we move into retirement. So you obviously finished up in 2020, was it?
Yep, 2020.
Yep,
Yep.
2020. How was retirement for you?
Yeah, it was my that 2020 year was a weird year for everyone, in the
Yeah.
world, not only us or me as a person, but if I go through the 2020 year, we go over the Aussie. I think we play Newcastle, we get a call. We go in after the game after we lose, and rather than talk about or debrief the game that we've just lost, we're talking about, all right, the New Zealand's gonna go into lockdown, and we may not be able to get back home. And that whole year was a little bit disrupted. We go up to somewhere up on the coast, and then they say, well, if you don't get out of the country now, you got families saying you need to move, you need to get out of here, you got to come back to New Zealand, or you're not going to be able to get back home. Um, in the mix of all of that, going home, doing your own training for 6 weeks, which was the hardest thing that I've ever done, because everyone's at home. I've got kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you had to find a way to stay sane, to stay fit, and hope that the season kicks off again. And in those journeys, in that journey of 2020 year, we didn't know if the game was going to get going. So I sat down and planned out. I was 34 that year, turning 34 that year, and I sat down and thought about, geez, if it was just to fall over now, what would I need to be doing? And
Yeah.
really didn't have a thought on what I wanted to do, like what I actually wanted to do. But what I knew I wanted to do was to help or give back to people, whether it be in rugby league or somewhere else. So I started my application for a police officer just in
Yeah.
case it all
Wow.
fell out because I really wanted to still have that team connection or that team
Mm.
bond, that work ethic that you have to have, or that commitment or the routine that you needed to have. And I was trying to find things like that so that will stimulate me in a way that I'll still have some sort of connection or team connection because when we're playing the game, we always got mates. And they're always there. And then once it's taken away from you, you're like, oh, well, what's next? So I wanted to try and find something that was going to keep me connected in some way as a team. So I applied to be an officer. I went through all the processes and I got right down to the psychometric test. When I got into the psychometric test, I was in Australia. So obviously with the Warriors, we moved over there and I didn't pass the test. I think it was me being, I don't know if I'm actually a deep thinker, but maybe a bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
and you've got only a little bit, not too much, and you've got I don't know, I think it was 100 questions or something, and you're supposed to only spend a minute and a half on every question, and I think I only answered 60 in the end, and I didn't pass, and they said, "Oh, I think I got 48%, and you're supposed to get 50, and that's a pass." I think I got 48, and they said to them, "How long do you spend on the questions?" I said, "Oh, literally 3 minutes sometimes." They're like, "Oh, well, you should have just spent like this is the time that you had to do it." So if I really would have just thought about it and just randomly guessed these things, I may have even passed, and I could have been a police officer, but. Anyways, I don't become a police officer. I failed the psychometric because the last thing before you become the police officer. And the year goes on through the COVID time and we're in Terrigal and it gets to a time where I'm coming to the end of my third year and obviously with most clubs, people start talking, it starts being whispers and we had a pretty tough year in 2020. Coaches gone early. Players are getting named out in the media like they do to this day still. That these guys are going to be moving on, and we've got to find places for these guys, salary cap problems, and we've got to move people here. And my name was one of those at the time, and I'm thinking that I am 34. I still, mentally and physically, my body was in, you know, if not the best shape it could be for a 34-year-old. I still love the game. And I thought when the new six again rule come in 2020, it was just started to suit the style of play that I needed it to be because I really did just front load a lot of my energy defensively and really didn't have enough energy to get back on side to be involved in the game because I put so much into the small detail defensively. Um, and so when you get the six again rulers is ruling, when we had obviously Ken Mamalo, he would get a six again and beautiful. I can get nearly 2 runs in a set where
Yeah.
sometimes I'll get one, miss two, get one, get miss another two, you know what I mean? So the six again rule comes around. So I'm feeling better about myself. I feel like, yep, this is starting to suit me. This is kind of where the game's going. I like it. And then I'm getting a little bit of a tap on the shoulder at the same time saying, hey, we're thinking about bringing some players in here and there's a bit of salary cap pressure. Obviously, you're one of the guys that we're looking at moving on. And so in those times, I've got my family over there. I started thinking about what life looks like outside of rugby league and do I want to still play or and if so are they going to be living in Australia again where my family won't be able to come and do I need to pack my family up with me and move them again while I sit down with my wife and have some conversations and every decision that I've made throughout my career, especially when I met my partner and had my son, we always made a family decision and it was always about my family and what was best for them. And at the time, through the COVID period, they weren't going to pack up and move again. And I guess that was the hardest decision because I didn't want to move to Redcliffe where they went if I didn't have my family with me. And everyone talks about the importance of your partners, your kids, and that's mostly half the reason why you play the game of rugby league is to support them, to be a role model, and then also to play the game that you love. So it comes to a time. I think there was a week left, and it was the week of the last game against the Seagulls, and I come to a decision that I'm going to retire, and the wife was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Well, if you keep asking me, I'm not sure because I wasn't sure actually." And then I just said, "Nah, stuff it. I'm just gonna say I'm done. I'm feel good. My mentals are good. My body's good." So I said to my wife, "That's us. We're done." So we go into our captain's run, and no one knows. And then I said, "Boys, just come in here. It's captain's run." I said, I don't want us to make a big deal about this. But this is going to be my last captain's run. This will be my last game this weekend, and or tomorrow, and I'll be finishing up." And then I kind of just that's sweet. Then and we just go back to our captain's run. I've always been that person that although my highlights speak otherwise, I always wanted to be the person just everyone loved playing with and hated playing against. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to make a big deal about this, although it was a big deal for my family. I didn't want to make a big deal about myself. Um, but I also made a decision around celebrating it with my family because I just really wanted to just go into the lockdown in New Zealand in the hotel, jump on my socials and just go, "Hey guys, I'm finished. That's it. I've retired," because I didn't want to make a big deal about it. But what what made me make my decision a lot easier was I really wanted to give those last moments to my kids and my wife so that we could have a memory that we could cherish for the rest of our lives. And although that was a long story, my bro, that was kind of the
I love it.
the gist of that retirement plan. And then obviously rolling into retirement, bro. I got very fortunate, obviously built a bit of a legacy over here in New Zealand, and through Australia, obviously. And fortunately, for me, I fell into the media,
Nice.
and worked with Sky Sport over here and doing commentary and sports analysts for them, as in for just the Warriors in New Zealand. So very fortunate that I fell into that space. I jumped into coaching as well. I did the SG Ball in 2023, our first year back after COVID, the club coming back after COVID. So there were some pretty tough times for us as a coach and as players because in the COVID period, we lost a lot of our kids to Australia due to obviously nothing being here in New Zealand, no
Mm.
games being played, no balls being touched. So I've jumped into that. I finished up this year, obviously, with the New South Wales Cup this year, helping coach and assist in that space. Man, I muck around in the community, obviously the Māori All-Star stuff as well,
Yeah.
coaching in that space. I get around to a lot of league carnivals and tournaments through New Zealand just because my whole reason for moving back home to New Zealand was not only to bring my family home and my wife to understand our culture, but also to give back to the game that gave so much to me and help, I guess, more Māori and Pacificas get equal opportunity to put themselves on in a position where they can have similar feats that I have. So, although I get around a lot and the game of rugby league has given me so much, I still try and give as much back to the game as I can because I think there's so many people and legends in New Zealand that could be doing the same, but there's not too many out there doing it. So, I'm passionate about our kids growing up from the north where I'm from, and very fortunate that Jane Fisher Harris is from pretty much around the corner from us, and he's pretty much rolling on the legacy, which is awesome.
That's great. Yeah.
So we are creating pathways for our next generation of Maori kids in the north. On the back of myself finishing up, obviously now we have Fish, and hopefully he can lead the way for the next generation of young Maori kids from the north wanting to be like him. And everything we do in both Fish and I is to be that representation for Maori people on the world stage.
Mate, that is awesome. Fantastic to hear that you're still involved in the game and still doing so much out there in the community. Mate, a couple of things before we finish up. What is one rule that you would like to change in the NRL to date?
Oh, one rule. Um, I don't know if you I don't know if I want to change a rule. I think like everyone, bro, we just want clarity.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? We just want clarity. I think the rules are fine. I think the rules are fine. I think everyone just wants clarity around what it is they're ruling on,
yeah.
more than anything. Because I think our game's a great game. It's a great spectacle. It's growing.
Mm,
It's moving really fast. Obviously hitting Vegas and stuff like that now, and with all the games that they have, it's crazy what the game's doing. But I think for me, rather than change a rule, I'd rather have real clear clarity on what it is that they're ruling on.
yeah, I love that. What is one piece of advice that you could give a young player coming through?
Oh man, my one would be to be patient, because especially in today's day and age, I wouldn't have said that to myself when I was younger. But I think in today's day and age, we really think that we can just get it right now and then,
Yeah,
because we are exposed to all these things now. So my one advice would obviously, alongside hard work, would to be patient, because waiting for that opportunity to come and being ready for it is more important than trying to try and get too far ahead. So yeah, being patient alongside hard work.
yeah, for sure. And to finish off, mate, there's a couple of weeks to go to the grand final. Who is going to take it out in 2024?
Oh, I think, if you're going on what we've seen just of late in the last bloody, 8 weeks or even a month,
Yeah,
you can't go past the Melbourne Storm. I think they've obviously wrapped up the competition real early, managed to rest 11 players, bring them all back, clean up the Brisbane Broncos. They go into this game being fresh again, on the back of watching what Cam Munster did, and just allowed. I don't even think he played the game. Cam Munster, he just allowed Jerome Hughes to do his thing, and I think he spoke about that after the game. It's a bit like basketball, when someone's hot, you just give them the ball. So I think he's well rested as well. They go into this one, you front load all your energy into this game, and then they get another bye, and that's just how I feel like they've got the momentum. It's it's really, the cards have fallen into their hands on the back of just hard work, because it hasn't been an easy year for them, but they've managed to come away, and be in the right place at the right time and be firing on all cylinders. And I think they'll play the Penrith Panthers. I think them and the Penrith Panthers will go into the grand final and they'll battle it out. And it could be anything when you come to the grand final. I'm back in the Storm, boys, but you can't go past the Penrith Panthers if they get to the final of the Storm. That man, they know what that feels like, and a four-peat, like it'll be huge,
oh
be
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
So
mate.
yeah,
It's
that's my guess.
Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting final series. All starts this weekend, of course. That's all the time we have for this interview. So I want to thank you, Adam, for jumping on. Really appreciate this. Of course, don't forget to check us out on all social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X as well, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But until next time, I'm Joey. That's Adam. Be good.
Not Joey.